Welcome, Laurie. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. It's day with Dharma is a good day. I am in Berkeley, as you are probably aware, and we had a nice we have a sunny, beautiful, but little bite in the air this morning, waking up. So I, I deduce that fall is here. These days where world events are at, it feels funny not to mention the world. So most of my talk is not focused on that, but I'm going to share one sentence from our founder, Shakyamuni Buddha, about what we're doing here. So he said, "I teach suffering and the end of suffering, period. I have nothing that does not tend toward peace." So that's what we're trying to carry forward in our imperfect way, to understand suffering and the end of suffering, and that everything we think or do or say is tending towards peace. So, as was mentioned, my talk is entitled Attachment, Non-Attachment, and Secure Attachment. So, it seems unfortunate, but perhaps I was just thinking during Zazen, maybe it's auspiciously thought-provoking. Maybe it's not unfortunate. Maybe it's auspiciously thought-provoking that we've ended up with like the most important and good thing from the perspective of Western psychology uses the same word, attachment, as what we see as the most problematic thing in Buddhist psychology. So in order to resolve this, we might think, well, some amount of attachment is okay or is necessary. Or maybe it's a different kind of attachment, and that's closer to the approach that I want to present this morning. First off, the Buddha had an earth-shaking insight, and his earth-shaking insight was not that human beings love each other, and due to impermanence, we lose what we love, and then we suffer. We suffer when the people we love, the people we're attached to, suffer or die. Now, there's some Buddhism in and around there because it's truth. It's a definite truth about our lives. And it's something we must keep coming to grips with throughout our whole life. It's not insignificant. And in that sense, it's Dharma, it's truth. And, there's some things in Buddha's teaching that make it sound like maybe that is what he's saying, but still, that was not his central insight. And I am going to talk about his central insight. But first, I wanted to start from the perspective of secure attachment and work my way over to Buddha's insight. So it's understood these days that for babies and children to develop in a healthy psychological and emotional way, in order for them to feel safe and happy and able to freely express their gifts, they need to have secure attachment with one or more caregivers and have a sense that they can depend on them. So what supports this development of secure attachment? And I should say that what I'm going to describe is sort of my own way of talking about secure attachment based on what I've read about it and also studied in my own experience and through conversations with others and observing other people's experience. So first, in order to create secure attachment, parents and caregivers need to be present. They need to be physically close and available a lot of the time, all the time at first, and then a lot of the time throughout a child's development. And they need to be emotionally present, attuned to their babies and children. So first thing is being present, physically and emotionally. Second, unconditional love. The message from the caregiver needs to be that you are loved just as you are. You don't need anything to win love. You don't need to do anything to win love. And love will not be given or withheld based on your behavior in order to control your behavior. There's some bottom line sense of being loved for who you are, no matter what. Third, caregivers need to actively care for babies and children, making sure they have what they need, including food, drink, stimulation, exercise, closeness, language, age-appropriate skill development. So parents and caregivers need to study and learn about their child's needs and put their children's needs first most of the time, except perhaps in the famous oxygen mask dropping down situation. Generally, we put our children's needs first. I have 2 children, by the way. They're 31 and 35. So there's probably more about developing secure attachment, but I want to keep it simple with just these 3: presence, unconditional love, and active caring, being able to put your child's needs first. And it sounds kind of simple, but it's a tall order. On the one hand, it can be done well enough, and on the other hand, it's not easy for anyone, I don't think. So many of us grew up with some sense of deficit in terms of secure attachment. We may have insecure attachment, or we may have avoidant, what they call avoidant attachment, and I forget the other types, but I'm familiar with those 2 from my own experience. My husband and Alan and I were both avoidant attached. So when things went wrong, we would sort of like go to our corners, retreat to our corners, and then, peer out and see if everything was okay. And then we would come out and we would be able to work things out by apology or talking something through or something. So our attachment style from childhood plays out in our current relationships. So it's really helpful to have some sense of what your attachment style is. And, each of us can probably recount or have some sense of where or why our parents, fell short on one or more of these 3 things: presence, unconditional love, and active tending. And so what gets in the way of a parent being able to offer these 3 things? So I'm proposing this morning that what gets in the way is exactly what we call attachment in Buddhism, attachment or self-clinging. And the main thing is not so much that self-clinging is like a morally wrong thing to do, but it's that our understanding of ourself, who and what we are, is based on misperceptions and misconceptions. It seems like ourself and others and things have this kind of inherent existence, some solid existence from within themselves, when actually everything is just this huge, complex unfolding of causes and conditions. Nothing stays, nothing lasts. There's no unchanging core to anything. And this kind of causes us to be confused about what will make us happy, what makes us happy, what will make us happy. We see all these things outside that look like they'll make us happy, like money, fame, success, that we need to acquire or achieve. And it's because we're confused about how the self exists. This inherent thing, this solid core, seems like something that could be satisfied or that needs to be shored up or fulfilled. And our ideas about ourself are somewhat contradictory. Like sometimes when we say self, ourself, we mean the part that would continue no matter what. And sometimes we mean the part of us that's most vulnerable. And so sometimes it's the part that has continued since we were born or even before we were born, perhaps. And sometimes it's the part that could be destroyed by humiliation or shame or death. So the point is that we're confused, mainly about ourselves and about other selves. Others look solid, and it looks like everything other people do is intentional and conscious. You know what I mean? It's so easy to judge and blame. When we believe that selves are solid things, it's so easy to judge and blame ourselves, and it's easy to judge and blame others. So this terribly confused idea of how we exist and how others exist causes us to attach or cling. We're attached to our identity. We're attached to our imagined idea of who we are. And it's largely because it's inaccurate and imaginary that our attachment is a problem. In fact, in Buddhism, it's the main problem. It may seem like it's really hard to see through our attachments to self. It seems so real, so solid. But, it's good to remember that we've already seen through some of our attachments from childhood, our misconceptions. Over the course of just growing and maturing, you find out that things are empty, whatever it is. Maybe it's, as you get older, you find out how empty being beautiful is. And then, or you find out you get money and you find out how empty that is to be satisfying. So you sort of just through natural maturity, we let go of some things by seeing that they're empty. So we actually see emptiness, but we don't necessarily phrase it that way, or we don't think of it as Buddha's emptiness. So my thesis here this morning is that the thing that gets in the way of children developing what Western psychology calls secure attachment is the thing that prevents parents from being present, from bringing forth unconditional love, and from being able to tend to their children's needs ahead of their own. And that is our own deluded attachments to the confused idea of self and other. The Buddha never said that parents should not love their children. In fact, he used maternal love as a model for how we should feel towards all living beings. In the Metta Sutta, which is one of the early Pali scriptures, he says, even as a mother at the risk of her life watches over and protects her only child, so, with a boundless mind, should one cherish all living things, suffusing love over the entire world. I think for some of us, having children was kind of a jump start to our bodhisattva vows. I was not so compassionate before, and but I was very moved always through my early years of practice. I was moved and inspired by this passage in the Metta Sutta. But then when I had a baby, I was like, what? This very feeling I'm having right now is what I'm supposed to spread and suffuse over the entire world for all living beings? How is that even possible? So let's say a parent is able to feel and express unconditional love for their child. Let's hope that at least that baseline is true. However, it's really still conditional because it's for that child, for your own children. So for me, there's another set of turning points in parenting when you have to, I believe, supported by many years of practice before my kids were born, you have to decide to let that unconditional love flow out to others. Maybe starting with other children, so my kids' friends or their families, my kids' teachers, and then gradually the whole village that you have to engage to raise a family. And if you don't make that turning, you might fall back on seeing your kid in competition with others and needing your kid to do better than others or get more than others. And suddenly we're fully back then in this confusion of self-clinging and making things that really aren't about us into being about us. So it's easy to begin to see our kids as something they could maybe bring this ultimate satisfaction we're longing for. If we could just get them to be who we see they could be, or we want them to be, to succeed in the way that we think they could, that success is. And that makes our love conditional. And that makes our focus be somewhat off kilter from being fully present. It makes us unable to tune into and understand what our loved one needs. So secure attachment applies beyond childhood, really to all our love relationships. We feel safe in relationships when there's open communication and we can rely on each other. So what I'm bringing up holds true for all our loving relationships. What helps us feel secure and open and close? What supports our secure attachment to each other? Well, when the other person is present, emotionally and physically, when they love us unconditionally, and they can connect and support us in practical ways. And how do we offer space and safety to others, to the loved ones in our lives? By being present for them, loving them unconditionally, and offering active support and connection. So last night I had a dream about this, about, I guess it was about my talk. Um, in my dream, my neighbor downstairs was thinking of moving. So his name is Yoni, and he, a few years ago, like right in the middle of the pandemic, the residency, I live at the Berkeley Zen Center. I'm a resident, and there's 9 residents here. And in the middle of the pandemic, we had a turnover of residents where we had all these younger people moving in. They're basically the same age as my kids. And so they're kind of like surrogate children. Not surrogate children from childhood, but like surrogate adult children. My relationships with them are sort of echo of my relationships with my adult children. And whether this has anything to do with it or not, my actual son, my biological son, did move out and move to Oregon from Berkeley about a month ago. So anyway, in my dream, Yoni's thinking about moving out. And the question arises, and I can't remember whether it's in my mind that it arises or someone actually asks it in the dream, but like, so which is that? Which is if I have a feeling of sadness about Yoni moving out, which is it? Is it secure attachment a consequence of secure attachment, or is it clinging and attachment like in Buddhism? So I don't exactly know the answer, but I think it's probably some of both. And it's probably more about what I do, more about what I do about it. And how I frame it to myself. So if I frame it that I'm losing, and this is true of my relationship with my own son, if I frame it that I lost one of the people who supported me during these past 2 years, these past 2 difficult years, I feel loss or sad or yeah, sad. There's no other word for it. But if I think about, as I've learned to do as a parent, I think you need to learn to do as a parent, how do I live I kind of live vicariously. So if he's stepping into a new stage of his life, if he's opening up into something new and exciting, I have that. I'm turning towards something new and exciting. So, that's more the open-hearted way. So I think both are true. I have some I have a secure attachment, which is my unconditional love for him. And I depend on him. I have some clinging. I have some self-involved. Um, so I have in my notes, I say end or go on, end here or go on, because I have one more point to make. And I was going to look at the clock and see it's only 11:30. So I'm going to go ahead and make my other point, and hopefully we'll still have, I never saw in there how long this is supposed to go, but hopefully there will be a little bit of time for questions and answers.
Yeah, we usually have our speaker end at their presentation at about 11:45 and then time for a Q&A, but it's flexible 5 minutes either way. So
It's going to be early. Yeah, it'll be earlier than that.
we'll
I
just
just
roll.
have a little bit more.
Okay.
And this is a whole nother spin. So I hope you're with me so far. So what about our relationship with ourself? How do we feel towards our own self-clinging? How do we feel towards different experiences that we have that someone might consider, or that we might consider self-clinging or bad or wrong or something? Is there a way to have secure attachment with ourself? And so I think this is related to what Suzuki Roshi calls big mind or true self or Buddha nature. Big mind holds everything. Big mind relates to all of our small minds, all of our confusion, our delusion, our attachments, and all of our confused ideas of ourself. So self, there's another word that can mean 2 opposite things. I've studied this Western psychological model, you may or may not have heard of it, called internal family systems. And their word for what we in Soto Zen, at least, or in Suzuki Roshi's way, call big mind or Buddha nature, they call self with a capital S. And their word for what we might call self or small mind or attachments is parts. We have all these parts. And when the parts are not in relationship to capital S self or big mind, they are extremely confused and unhappy. So how do we develop this secure attachment within ourselves? So I'm proposing the same three things. Learning how to be present for ourselves, and that means moment by moment with the incredible flux of our lives, our physical experience, our emotional experience, how we think about things, and our spiritual experience, which is basically Zazen. Zazen is make a sincere effort to be fully present with ourselves, and ourselves in the sense of our so-called parts inside, you could say, and ourselves in the bigger sense of everything. So then being present, and then unconditional love towards ourselves. Big mind, what Dogen referred to as grandmotherly mind towards ourselves. Big mind towards our confusion. How do you feel about when I was talking about self-clinging and attachment? If you look at what came up for you about yourself, how do you feel towards that part of yourself? If we're in big mind, we feel unconditional love towards those parts of ourselves. And then taking care of ourselves, acting on our own behalf, not on behalf of our limited, confused, delusional, static, anxious, controlling selves, parts, but our own true self. How do we take care of our own true self, which is actually everything that's happening in moment by moment. So that's what I prepared, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about these ideas.
Thank you, Laurie. We're going to take a deep breath here and think about what you said, and then we'll turn the floor over to our folks for some dialogue with you.
Thank you.
Hey, Laurie, I'm Erin.
Hi.
I'm thinking about this in relationship to not exactly people right now, but to myself and place, because I've recently moved. And the move was a welcome move, but it's interesting how I think I've matured enough now because I've moved throughout my life to different places, probably more than most people. How I'm relating with it differently this time. Each time, actually, as I mature more.
Yeah.
And being okay when I feel my resistance to the energies, that's how I would describe it, the bigger energies that arise in me when I start to feel really what it is fear down to it, because it's that when you start to feel yourself letting go of something that either you knew you were attached to or didn't, and particularly when you didn't know you were attached to it, shows up and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Just
and yeah.
And not judge them and know that it's just a process. that happens every time I leave a place, because I think most people do. I was talking about this with someone earlier here in our group. I think everyone grows, is permeated by place, but I intentionally develop intimate relationships, particularly with my natural surroundings in place. And so I'm very aware when I leave my natural surroundings in particular, there'll be a grieving period, whatever I've become intimate with. So I'm just noticing how I have a different relationship with that, and then I don't avoid it as much, and then therefore go into strategies in order to not feel, to succumb to the resistance of just
Yeah. And it's so, I mean, it reminds me of what we chanted, the merging of, which I know as the merging of difference and unity. It had a different title the way we chanted it, but the two sides are always going to be in a conversation with each other. That's why you don't want to leave those that fear. It's like that's part, you don't want to leave that out on its own. You want to always be in relationship to it, So your true self or big mind or whatever call it, should always holding that close and being present with it and accepting, like, of course you feel that way. And humans, culturally, we're much less place-based than humans have been, for where we have a sense of place and home and all that. So and also, if your move is kind of an intuitive, this is the next step for me, that's also coming more from the unconditioned side, that intuitive sense. And there's always going to be this other side, the human side, which is always going to, go for what's dangerous about this. Well, that's our first thought because of the negativity bias of our, what do you call it? Natural selection of human beings over thousands of years, what is dangerous about this? So that's going to be natural. So it sounds like you've done it enough times that you have a maturity around what comes up, So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Also,
you could help other people with that because you've learned a lot about it.
Thank you.
And you were going to say something else also?
Oh, sorry, lost my train of thought.
Oh.
I've just noted, wherever you go, there you are is kind of a phrase I use a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm noticing the same particular thought pattern, one in particular, is childhood, of when I uproot, which is a deep sense of aloneness in the world. And I don't like to use this phrase that much just because I think it's been a bit overused, but in this case, it feels appropriate, which is to befriend that. It doesn't feel like this big, scary monster when it.
Yeah.
And that's getting back to, and I won't carry on about this, but the attachment style I developed as a child then and carried that forward, as well as I think, those attachment styles aren't just clear cut. They're integrated into a fabric of who we are that, on one hand is a mystery, and on the other we can parse apart sometimes and point to, I guess, more factually. Yeah. Kind of noticing that I should say I'm maturing in that relationship too, to when that rears its head, like, oh, there you are. Yes, of course, you come with me everywhere I go.
My husband used to say it resolves to a subtler level.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's always going to be with you. You're spiraling around, this set of, you're not going to suddenly become a completely different kind of person who's feeling completely differently about everything. Like, that's not in the cards,
What's wrong?
What was that?
Not a button that gets pushed while
Yeah.
you're wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi, I hear you.
Hi. Yeah. Welcome back. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Ken.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Somehow, an insight that just created 2 new words in my vocabulary is the word, one word in our language seems to encapsulate clinging, and the word is the boy, the girl, the
Uh-huh.
that and here's the new words: the nounification of our existence, self. So that when there is then there is immediately other.
It's how we make objects so we can talk about things.
And so the second new word is verbification, where I as self am within and part of and indistinct from the flow of and within that, on an experiential level, as of late, I am only existing in this moment, which is itself passing. So whether I'm clinging or detached, whether I'm fearful or joyful, it's part of the verbification.
Yeah.
Whether I'm silly or wise in any given moment, still part of that verbification. And because I don't, again, using this new word, verbicate alone, I am also within the fluid or non-fluid harmonization or disharmonization.
You're sillying, or you said I'm silly, or what, playful. You're sillying, or you're the verb means you're doing it, not that it's a thing. It's a happening or something.
And it's more enjoyable being in a harmonious relationship.
Yeah.
The field.
So harmonizing. Yeah, we're harmonizing.
So internal and external are only conveniences. There's the field and that which is engaging in the field. And
it's pretty fluid. It's not even like the field is inside too, as we know from Zazen, where sometimes what's happening inside of us feels like other, But what was I just gonna say? Yeah.
Thank you for awakening that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
I will not cling to what I just said.
Thanks. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah. Inside and outside are not two, as we say, which is different from saying it's one. I like this. We're not two. We're not saying we're one, but we're not two. And we're not more than two. Yes, go ahead.
Although some of us in power think they are.
What he had to say, and he said it anyway. I have nothing to say, and I'm going to say it anyway. What your talk triggered for me was not so much the Buddhist attitude toward, but the words secure attachment. And what happens when we don't get that secure attachment? My story is my daughter's 34 years old, special needs daughter that still lives with us. And
I honor you for that work. Caregiving is really intense and
And,
undescribable work. Yeah.
and we adopted her from Romania as an infant. And what happened there, we thought if we bring her over and we love her, that everything will work out. But she did not get that secure attachment in the orphanage.
Mhm.
She got physical attachment. They fed her occasionally, but no one held these children. They had no secure attachment.
Mhm.
They banged themselves against their crib walls. And when you skip, what we've learned is when you skip certain parts of your brain development, you can't go back. And so there's gaps in there. And if you talk to her for an hour, you would think she's a lovely woman and perfectly fine. And the second hour, you'd have doubts. And by the third time you meet her, you say, there's some problems here because she had those gaps. And so we've adapted to those. But could you say anything more about when you miss these
Mhm.
attachments?
Yeah. I think that, well, I believe that there can be healing and not absolute, but, that's part of what Western psychology is trying to do. And part of what internal family systems is trying to do is to heal the missing attachment wounds, to heal the attachment wounds. And certainly I think you should know that what you've been doing for 34 years or 32 years or however long it's been has brought about healing for her. And it's not absolute and forever and complete, but just we have to have faith, I think, that we can heal. And in relationship is how you heal. You redo it, so but my husband and I both had insecure avoidant attachment because that's how we got through. We went away and then we didn't come back. We just went away. But what we learned to do with each other is, well, we still went away, but we came back and worked things out, So sometimes you can't, and sometimes then I don't always go away, but I still go. It's still go away is still an option, It's sort of a default option in trouble, But I've also got other tools, that I've developed, and I honor you. I hope she continues to develop other tools and develop. We're all, we're all impaired. I mean, it's okay to be impaired. It's not a problem to be impaired. Yeah, we're all impaired. So just good work. Good work. What?
We all live somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah. That's why they call it a spectrum, right? I often say myself, hint of, I hope, hint of Asperger's, about if I look back on my childhood, oh yeah, hint of Asperger's. They didn't have it. They didn't have the diagnosis then, but thank you.
Laurie, I'm Chodo Dave here. I'm a little off screen. I'm not sure you can
I can hear you. Yeah, fine.
see me, but I was thinking of your letting us know that your son has moved from Berkeley to Oregon, and that one of the things you spoke about with secure attachment is physical presence, co-presence, and now you have a type of presence with him. And I was wondering if you could just share with us how you're thinking about that and how you, or can you replace that physical closeness, that co-presence that you have with a different way of being present with him? Because I suspect that you are always going to be his mom. He's always going to be your son. That
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of
Mm-hmm.
secure attachment will
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of a practical question of how do you navigate that
Mm-hmm.
that sort of no longer physically being present to see the person,
Yeah, it's a good question. Well,
their nonverbals, all of that comes with being physically present.
yeah, yeah. Well, because because he had relatively, not secure attachment. I think not that we didn't make mistakes, but we're in pretty close contact. Fortunately, I try not to initiate too much. Try again because of I don't want it to be my needs exactly, We're not equals. Like if we were peer, that would be different. He's always going to be my kid, and I was going to be the mom until I'm enfeebled and he has to take care of me. Hopefully not right away. I mean, actually, both my kids really stepped forward to take care of me during the last 2 years. So we had a little role reversal there, Um, and of course we were all grieving. But I think that the secure attachment is much more can be much more it's much more elastic if you have it there, you've established it, right? We established it, and now we can go far away, and still a word or a text or a joke will bring us back, especially a joke. My son was very funny. Will bring us back together, and it feels like closeness, I am, now that I wandered from my family. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I wandered to San Francisco. And now I very much why people didn't wander. Now that my daughter's going to have a baby, she's in Chicago, like, oh, now I understand why you had the family compound with the kids, building another house for the kid in the back, and, staying close. So I think it is kind of, it's not, what's the word? It might not be so good the way we've set things up as having this wanderlust or this something, We think about people who established this country, and they wandered, and we're just we still are wandering in a way. We're keep wandering, It's in our DNA somehow. So maybe some of us more than others, I think some people have established a home somewhere, and they keep, and the kids will keep staying generation after generation. That can happen too. But so I guess I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. On the one hand, I'm saying with secure attachment, you can be far apart physically and still have a way to, to run the energy between you somehow. And on the other hand, closeness is good, and being close, especially with the next generation coming along, which when those babies they need to establish secure attachment. And I want my grandchild to have a secure attachment with their grandmother, like, how am I going to do that? So both are true, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you for that. It sounds like that money in the bank you have with him from
Right.
together,
Yeah.
you can keep drawing on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Just real quick, another word for secure attachment would be connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the other, he's going to Portland.
He's going to Corvallis. He's in Corvallis.
Okay, good. I was afraid for him.
Oh, yeah. Poor Portland, my hometown. Yeah.
It's funny you should say that. I had a friend that just visited her best friend for a week in Portland, and I said, "How was it?" Because I'm reading about ice, and she said, "We never saw them."
Yeah, it's pretty localized. Yeah.
The news reports make it sound like it's just all over, and she said,
Mhm.
"It's kind of place where it's happening, and it's a small kind of it's not overwhelming the city. It's just you have to read the news with a little bit of a skeptical eye, I guess."
Mhm. Yeah, and the same is, I mean, that cuts both ways too. Like, I know in Berkeley, I don't see, I've friends of mine are doing various kinds of accompaniment, and I don't see, but I found out that a woman who runs this store that's on University Avenue, the sari store. She came from India and started this store that sells saris, and she was just deported back to India after being here 20 years, and running this store for 20 years. So it hits me, but it's, even though I don't see I don't see ice agents, but it's still it's impacting us. So, yeah, and look around where's Berkeley on the list? How high is Berkeley on the list, right? Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question here before we close. And so, Ian and Josephine, you haven't had a chance to speak. I don't know if you want to, but
No, I'm good.
the
Thank
floor is
you.
open.
No.
Ian?
Thank you.
Well, any parting comments from anyone? All right, Laurie, we are, you can't see all of us in Gasho bowing to you, but we are.
Thank you, Laurie.
And so grateful
Yeah,
to
thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
being here. We'll close here with just a bell and the 4 vows, and then we do some internal announcements, so you can stay with us as long as you would like.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn it
Page
forward.
41.
Thank you, Laurie.
We'll chant
Thank you.
3 times English,